Welcome to the Fantasy Football Anonymous Show. I'm Joe Osno, here with Rob Shaw, Matthew Schroeder. As always, we'd like to invite you to support our sponsors, No One and Nothing. Do what you want. We're not beggars. And we're excited for Week 14 of the NFL season. It is the fantasy playoffs. They've officially begun. Hopefully you're there. If not, you're excited for another great week in daily fantasy. Always a fun way to keep the action going even when you've been knocked out. So before we jump into the Week 14 action, we're going to recap a little bit of what we saw in Week 13, talk about what stood out to us, which teams are peaking at the right time, or which players are really standing out at this crucial point of the season. And Schroeder, what really stood out to you from Week 13?
Well, I'm going to talk about the Oakland Raiders. Right now, they're actually not playing that bad. But when you look at some of the opponents they face, that's probably the reason they're not playing that bad. Right now, the Oakland Raiders sit at 6-6, right in the meaty part of that division, right with the Chiefs and the Chargers. But here's the thing. They're not that good of a team. Last week, the Raiders beat the Giants 24-17. Again, this was a Giants team that's was quarterbacked by Geno Smith. Not really that impressive a victory. I will say Marshawn Lynch is starting to pick up steam a little bit. But Derek Carr is not playing nearly as well as he did last year. And I don't expect this Raiders team to finish with a winning record. I could easily see 8-8, maybe even 7-9. But this is just a team that is probably, even though they're still in the thick of the AFC West, I really like the Chargers to take this division. And I just don't think the Raiders have the talent this year to, go and make some noise in the playoffs. Rob, what really stood out to you last week?
Good take. I'm not buying into the Raiders right now. I agree with that. One thing that I noticed, I was kind of reminded of something this weekend watching football. Exciting night game. We had the Eagles and the Seahawks. And what I really took from that game is you can't, as much as they've had struggles with the offensive line and a running back situation I don't really know what to make of it. And a defense that hasn't been as good as it has been, as elite as they have been in the years past. They're a really good team. They knock off the top, what most people regard, what I said was the best team in the league last week. And that just goes to show you, if you're great at quarterback and you're great at coach, you can beat anybody and you'll always have a chance to win the Super Bowl. I think we have to start talking, even though they've had their bad moments, they've had their struggles this year, the Seattle Seahawks. You got the first 10 games of the season, and then they say like the last 6, it's almost like a new season. This is the second part of the season. The Seahawks look good. They look good against a great Philly team with really no flaws, and other than maybe youth, and that really showed a little bit this week. But yeah, they're contenders. We have to start talking about the Seahawks again. That they could make a run. I wouldn't be shocked. I was, shocked that the Falcons made to the Super Bowl. They could be that team, make it to the Super Bowl. So yeah, it just goes to show great quarterbacking, great coaching. It can get you a long way in this league.
Rob, before Joe goes on to his game, I like your take. It's interesting that the Seahawks aren't even leading their division right now. It's going to be a real scrum with them and the Rams, to see who actually leads their division. If the Seahawks can get home field advantage, I completely agree. They're a dangerous team. They're a team that knows how to win. They're kind of like the Patriots in that they've won for so long that they just kind of figure out ways, even though they don't have the dominant defense that they used to, where they're just finding ways to win. And Russell Wilson has played phenomenally this year.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, he's been unbelievable, and that Philly pass rush, they just wore him out. They've been great, but Russell Wilson, you just can't get him on the ground. It's unbelievable how he sneaks away. And Rob, you brought up the Atlanta Falcons in your talk about the Seahawks thinking that could be the team to make it to the Super Bowl this year, and they played a pretty tough opponent in the Minnesota Vikings, who are absolutely dominating right now, playing incredibly good defense. The Falcons, who had been on a really great roll offensively, they just couldn't get anything done against that dominant Minnesota defense. Julio Jones, who exploded last week, really couldn't get anything done against Xavier Rhodes. And I look for the Vikings also to be a team that could really make a run toward a Super Bowl, just because on the back of that great defense. And what a story that would be for them to be able to play a Super Bowl in their home city. They'd have to be a heavy favorite there.
Yeah.
Well, right now, if they're the number one seed in the NFC, if they win, if they get the number one seed, it could be home game in the Super Bowl. It'd be the first time that's ever happened.
I don't think that's ever happened. That would be incredible.
First time. So it'd definitely be a crazy environment if they were able to get there. They'll be interesting to watch to see if they will be able to actually get that done.
And the big part of it is how much different their offensive line is from a year ago. The difference is night and day. When you can have a running game and have time to throw, it makes all the difference.
Yep, absolutely. One other takeaway that I wanted to share is the Titans faced the Texans last week. They beat them 24-13, and the Titans are sitting at 8-4 right now, which you're probably thinking, yeah, they're a decent team. I'm here to say they're not that great. Every other AFC team that's solidly in the playoffs is probably hoping that they're facing the Tennessee Titans first round because they have a deficiency in defense. Marcus Mariota hasn't looked that good, and almost all of Tennessee's wins have come against inferior opponents that really haven't been playing that well. If I'm an AFC team like the Patriots, the Steelers, Chargers, I am hoping that I get to face the Titans first round. And that's probably going to be the easiest team that's going to be making the playoffs in the AFC. I don't see them actually falling down the rest of the way. I think they're going to make the playoffs, but I'm definitely, if I'm a team in the AFC, that's who I'm hoping that I'm going to be going up against.
Yeah.
All right, so we're going to continue into this week's games and kind of say which ones are we going to be finding the most interesting and which ones should you guys tune into. So, Joe, can you go ahead and start us out on which game is the most interesting to you?
Which game is the most interesting to me? That's a very good question. Well, we've already talked about them a ton. It's the Seattle Seahawks at the Jacksonville Jaguars. And it's the Jacksonville Jaguars that have the much more dominant defense at this point in the season, which is might have sounded crazy, at the start of the year. But two teams that are really excelling, but at far different things. It's a Jacksonville run game that's kind of struggled. I'm interested to see if they can get Leonard Fournette going. He's been a little bit banged up. He's had this ankle issue that's cropped up at random times throughout the season, and it's really kind of limited him. But I'm really interested to see how Russell Wilson fares in the toughest matchup that he'll probably face all year on the road at Jacksonville against that great pass rush, those great corners. And I'm fascinated to see if they can actually get pressure on him and put him on the ground a few times. And they might be almost Saxonville this week.
Yeah, Joe, that's going to be a fun game. My instinct makes me want to go with Jacksonville for the win. But then I remember it always comes down to quarterback for me. Wilson versus Bortles. And they've won a lot of games with Blake Bortles. But I kind of want to lean towards Russell Wilson and the Seahawks. It's going to be a really fun game to watch. I think it's going to be low scoring. I think it'll be pretty ugly, both defenses. Maybe in Jacksonville's offense, especially with Fournette struggling with the injury.
I will say, sorry.
Yep.
I will say it'll come down to which quarterback can make a play, and at the end of the game, I feel like, and of course, it's going to be Russell Wilson.
Yeah.
I'll watch Blake Bortles have like 3 touchdowns after we've trashed him.
Hey, what a fantasy week he had! 24 points, pretty good. The game I'm looking forward to is definitely the Eagles against the Rams, the Los Angeles Rams. Make sure I'm getting it right. It's the Chargers I'm having difficulty with. This is going to be one of the best games of the year, possibly. You got two quarterbacks, one who, drafted right after the other. It's really fun when we get to see that. We got to see it a few years back with Marcus Mariota and Jameis Winston. I believe that was week 1, which was pretty cool. And both quarterbacks are playing well. Wentz struggled last week. I think Seattle's a really good team, and, it's a tough game. He's a young quarterback. He's going to have some tough games. It wasn't going to be perfect the whole way through the season for Wentz and the Eagles. So I like the Eagles in this game. I think it's going to be super competitive. I think it's going to be a shootout. The Rams right now, offensively, they're getting it done. Perfect blend of running the ball, throwing the ball. Goff has really taken that next step. So I think it's going to come down to the last 2 minutes. I say that a lot. I feel like sometimes it's a cop-out, but I really do think it's going to come down to the last 2 minutes. And, I think Wentz, so far, I think he's the better quarterback. But Goff, he's trying to catch up. He's had a really nice season. So that's the game I'm excited for.
Yeah, both these second-year quarterbacks really have stepped up from the first year, have looked really good. I would probably go for the Rams just because they're at home, but I could easily see the Eagles winning. But the game that I'm most interested in this week is the game that has huge playoff implications, has huge fantasy implications, and that's the 49ers at the Texans. This is just a huge – wait a minute. No, that's not the game. I'm sorry, guys. It's going to be the Saints at the Falcons, the Thursday night game. Now, guys, I would be remiss to mention that I despise Thursday night football. It is a tragedy that these teams play because mostly it always screws me in fantasy.
Yeah,
but this one actually has a little bit of potential. It's 2 NFC South teams. Usually when they get together on Thursday night, it's relatively high scoring. And there is going to be a lot of fantasy players that have implications for this game. Obviously, Drew Brees, Alvin Kamara, he's going to be going crazy. Mark Ingram, Michael Thomas, the usual players are going to be playing. These are heated rivals. The Falcons absolutely despise the Saints. Look for them to actually come out on fire, firing everything that they could possibly have the Saints. The Falcons need this game if they're going to stay in the playoff hunt. And so I'm actually going to be picking the Falcons to win this game, surprisingly, just because I think they're going to come out with the team wanting it more, especially after the Saints probably feel pretty good. They might be a little bit cocky after their win over the Panthers last week. So that's the game I'm most interested in this week.
Good take. I'm still going with the Saints on that game, but I think on paper people think the Saints are going to win and they're going to win handily. I think it could be close. I really think it could go either way, especially them feeling good after a win. It's going to be a good Thursday night game for once.
Yeah, I tend to go with the home team on Thursday night. I think the Falcons do have a real shot to knock off the Saints here. And if you play DraftKings, take Alvin Kamara this week. I'm facing him in 3 playoff matchups. I guarantee a 40-point game and 3-point PPR scoring. You heard it here.
And Michael Thomas. I'm playing him in 2 leagues against
me.
This guy.
So Alvin Kamara and Michael Thomas are both guaranteed to have 40-point games. You heard it here first. Well, for me, Joe and Rob, thanks, guys, for tuning in. Please go ahead and subscribe to our videos as well as like them below. Also, you can send us any questions you have at ffanonymous3@gmail.com, or you can tweet us your questions or comments at ffanonymous3 as well. For me, Joe and Rob, thanks for tuning in, and remember, stay addicted.